Hello, everyone. Let's jump right into things and talk about the elephant in the room. So, you may have come here thinking that we are going to be talking about being the best accomplice to a crime that you can be. But no, we are not going to be speaking about law and order, but we are going to change your perception of what an ally and active accomplice are during this talk. We recognize that it would be impossible to address every group in the time we have allotted, but we hope that you're able to leave with something valuable.
Why should you care about this? Think of all the people in your life. Most likely, you have a relative who was born a woman. This automatically makes them part of one of these underrepresented or discriminated groups. We are going to talk about the difference that allies and active accomplices can make to people's lives. So, here's the agenda of topics we will be speaking about today. We're going to explain the difference between an ally versus an active accomplice, knowing when to step up and when to step back, how to normalize difficult conversations, and finally, support, resources, and cultural considerations.
So, what is an ally and active accomplice? An ally, by definition, is a supportive association with a person or group. Allies are the foundation of essential support to minority and discriminated groups. Allies commonly are not a member of that group, but take actions that underpin and help them. This infographic is a really useful tool to understand the difference between the two. Allies generally offer quiet support and sometimes don't engage as much, while an active accomplice makes their voice and stance known and heard. As mentioned here, an ally is not against a group and can often provide quiet support, as to not be in the spotlight, whereas an active accomplice is a vocal advocate with direct impact on systems and does not mind paying the cost of advocacy.
You may be asking yourself, what is the difference? What is an active accomplice? The definition of accomplice is a person who knowingly, voluntarily, or intentionally gives assistance to another. Active allies and accomplices help underrepresented groups by following their direction to provide assistance to amplify their voices, change organizations, and move society forward as a whole. When you look at the origin of the word accomplice, you see the word was created from two words in Old French, from a Latin origin, from cum, which means together, and placere, which means to fold. We are using accomplice in the context of bringing underrepresented groups together with those who can help them and uplift them.
So, who are we and why do we care about this subject? I'm a proud gay woman. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an accountable active accomplice to people of color, the trans community, and every other marginalized group that I'm not personally in. Hi, I'm Kara. And when I'm not using my voice to invoke change for a better tomorrow, playing with my cats, or immersing myself in nature, I'm a team lead executive assistant based in New York City. I'm one of the global leads for MongoDB's Queer Collective Affinity Group, helping to bridge the knowledge gap between the LGBTQIA community and allies. An affinity group, or ERG, in case you don't know, is a group of people with a shared trait, interest, or goal to discuss issues within their community and work to solve them.
My personal ethos is that all people should have the opportunity to live a fair and equitable life. My name is Sean Carroll. I'm Irish, originally from a small town in County Limerick called Kilmallock. I'm a huge outdoor sports fan, cyclist, and I love DIY. I identify as gay and I use he, him pronouns. I'm also one of the global leads for the Queer Collective, an affinity group in MongoDB for the LGBTQIA community and amazing allies that supports, educates, and uplifts those within MongoDB and the wider community.
I stayed in the closet for most of my career, mainly because I never saw anyone demonstrating to me that it was okay to be out. It wasn't until starting to work in tech that I even heard about an affinity group or ERG. When I started to see and feel that support and feel empowered to be myself, all I wanted to do was to be part of that for others. So for the past nearly 7 years, I've committed myself to self-education, raising awareness, and helping drive progress forward. This is how I upgraded myself to an active accomplice.
So, why should you care about this? Why is the importance of diversity and inclusion? The tech sector has some of the lowest proportions of people of color and women of any sector in the US. And in Europe, less than 7% of people in tech are women. 97% of US corporations have senior leadership teams that fail to reflect the demographic composition of the country's labour force and population.
When you look back in history, it's easy and clear to see there have been countless women that have paved the way for women today to work in tech and product, and we would not have a lot of the exciting technical revolutions and inventions that we use widely today.
I bet everyone here watching this talk is connected to Wi-Fi. So, without Hedy Lamarr, who was an Austrian-born American actress, none of you would be using Wi-Fi. She patented her secret communication system in 1942 with the help of composer George Antheil. This frequency hopping system was intended as a way to set radio-guided torpedoes off course during the war. This idea eventually inspired Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth technology commonly used today.
Without these women, we wouldn't be where we are today. And to think, there was a time we couldn't even vote or work at all. Here are just a few of the amazing women who have made their mark, from computing to video games to computer science and well beyond. Grace Hopper was one of the pioneers of software development. Ada Lovelace created some of the first computer algorithms. Katherine Johnson, the trailblazing NASA mathematician, made space exploration possible. Women also invented super fun things too, like the ice cream maker, the original Monopoly game, and the aquarium that we all know and love today.
With the advent of travel and technology, people are exposed to far more than ever before. Companies need to be able to cater for this intersectionality and realize the importance of fostering this diversity. Diversity brings innovation. In this study by Boston Consulting Group in 2017, they found that companies with a below average diversity score had an average of 26% innovation revenue versus a 45% average innovation revenue in companies with above average scores.
There's a strong desire within MongoDB to foster inclusion, provide education and understanding on how to be a good ally, and help improve equality and equity in the workplace. We would like to extend this knowledge to the rest of the MongoDB community. During this talk, we hope to change your mind on the importance of allies and especially accountability, and how each of us can change the fabric of society and the organizations in which we work.
Diversity fosters creativity. By listening to people from all backgrounds and experiences, you bring together different ideas and incorporate them to drive innovation. At the end of the day, when you're creating an environment where people can come together and bring their own views and feel respected, competitively, your company will do so much better.
One of the key principles you need to understand as an ally is privilege. So, what is privilege? This statement captures it best in a very simple way. Privilege is when you think something is not a problem because it's not a problem to you personally. By the exact definition, privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. For example, even though I'm in an underrepresented group as a lesbian, I recognize that I have privilege as a white woman. Using your privilege to amplify voices and help others is where your own accountability comes into play.
So now we're going to speak about knowing when to step up and when to step back. This is a very broad topic, and we could spend all day talking about it. But today we wanted to share some ideas that will help you understand ways in which you can support underrepresented groups.
One of the first things you can do is step up. So what does that mean? This can be as simple as stepping up when you see a friend or colleague being disrespected, talked over, or discriminated against, and using your own voice to defend them or give them support. However, stepping back is equally important. Stepping back means that we don't want to dominate the conversation or demean their experience that we do not have firsthand experience with. As allies, we want to amplify their lived experiences and stories. Stepping back also means doing your own research and self-education to gain a better understanding of how we can improve our support.
In preparation for this talk, we had many thought-provoking interviews with people from many different groups and backgrounds. We want to share some of the quotes that really stood out and provided so much insight for us. Cherish Richardson is one of the leads for the underrepresented people of colour affinity group in MongoDB and had this to say: "Don't hesitate to bring up the tough topics. There's nothing wrong with asking questions and having open communication. Education is a two-way street."
Patrice Palmer, an active accomplice and amazing LGBTQIA+ activist, made a powerful point in saying, "Some want to wait for the trauma to pass and say, 'Oh, you handled that so well,' instead of stepping in while it's happening. It's our responsibility to use our voices, get involved, and hold ourselves accountable."
We're now going to look at finding ways to normalize difficult conversations. Stepping up at first can not only mean learning to have difficult conversations with others, but also introspectively with yourself. A big part of unlearning societal bias and your own innate bias is actually challenging your own views and perceptions and to be willing to learn and grow. This can be difficult to start with, but over time, this becomes easier. The next step is to educate yourself. In planning this talk, we spoke to many different groups. All of them agreed that they would rather be asked than have assumptions made. Self-education is very important, so by educating yourself, you can become more aware. Then you can help to educate others around you when needed.
Now, it's important to keep in mind that the internet is far from perfect. A huge problem today is the misinformation that can often flood the interwebs. It's still a good place to start. And there's a big difference between asking your lesbian friend, "So, who's the man in your relationship?" versus saying, "I've been trying to read and learn more about the lesbian community as I don't know much about it, but I'm unsure if what I'm learning is true and if I'm using a good resource. Would you be open to answering some questions?"
So while the internet can be full of misinformation, there are still a ton of valuable resources available. So just keep calm and check your facts.
Here are some examples on how to best utilize Google to fact check. If you hear a rumor that you're not sure is true and could be offensive to ask, it's best to check online. More often than not, university websites have a lot of free educational resources. If you're not sure if a website is a legitimate source, you can do a separate search for that to make sure it's credible.
Coming to people from different communities with a genuine curiosity and an open mindset to learn about them and make yourself more aware will always be received in a more favorable way than an expectation of that person or underrepresented community to educate you. The best part about this is the more comfortable that person or group feels around you, the more likely they are to shed the layers holding them back and bring their full selves to the forefront.
We are not human dictionaries, but people with lived experiences who may be able to share our experiences with you or point you in the right direction. The goal, of course, is to normalize difficult conversations, which can be the most challenging to have with those closest to you. This might be with your siblings, significant others, or even your close friends.
Even as queer identifying people, the community is continually changing and evolving. We continually have to educate ourselves and be open to learning. The education does not just work for those outside the underrepresented community, it also happens within the community itself. This could be sharing progress or challenges, sharing terminologies, or ways we work together. I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, one of my closest friends came out to me as non-binary. I literally had to Google what non-binary was, but then I was able to go to them and ask, as Cara mentioned before, for some more information on their experience, and it was received really well. In today's world, people have more ways in which to express their opinions and views, and a lot of these difficult conversations may start with being open to understanding the difference between what is an actual opinion versus a toxic view.
I find it great to judge an opinion versus a toxic view with this analogy. An opinion is, "I like pineapple on pizza," but many don't. Whereas a toxic view could be something like, "I don't think that women should earn the same salary as men." If your question or statement comes from a place of love and desire for understanding, then it's likely okay. If it comes from a place of intolerance, hate, or stemming from some kind of discrimination, like misogyny, racism, homophobia, etc., then it's probably toxic.
If you come across a toxic viewpoint, this quote from Patrice M. Palmer is really useful. Focus on the humanity of the situation. Think of the person or group this viewpoint is being directed at, then think about how you can show up to help this person or people.
Libby Fear, one of MongoDB's women's group ERG leads, summarized it this way. You have to show up first for each other and support your peers through events, initiatives, etc. Ask different groups and people how you can show up for them.
We're now going to look at foundations of support, resources, and some cultural considerations. You don't have to be a full-time activist to be an ally. There are many levels and tiers on how you can be supportive. We've put together these examples to show you.
We structured this chart intentionally as a pyramid to show that all of these tiers are essential. You can't run before you walk, and each of the levels holds its own importance in support. The base of the pyramid is an inactive ally, which is someone who just offers quiet support and is not actively engaged. The next tier up is a passive ally, which is someone who offers a bit more support and has a basic understanding of allyship. Then we go up to the active accomplice, which, as we've mentioned, is a vocal advocate who holds themselves accountable and engages with underrepresented groups. The only tier that we have not mentioned yet is the one at the top, the change maker. We see this level as only slightly above an active accomplice, someone who has committed their life to driving forward change. This could be a diversity and inclusion leader, someone in politics making sure policies are written to evolve our communities, or anyone who is unapologetically loud and in the spotlight, making sure these issues are visible and worked on.
For myself, I really saw and understood the meaning of these levels of support and how each tier of accountability plays a role during the 2015 marriage equality referendum in Ireland. During this time, it was put to public vote whether or not to amend the Irish constitution to allow same-sex couples the right to marry and avail of the same legal protections associated with civil marriage. Many allies to the LGBTQIA+ community stood side by side with the queer community, upgrading to active accomplices to campaign for a yes vote. Without this support, it may have taken far longer for the LGBTQIA+ community to achieve marriage equality. This is a really great example of how you can use your voice to help and to add value.
Over the last year, many people all over the world have become active accomplices to the Black community as part of the Black Lives Matter movement in the wake of the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many other traumatic losses within the Black community. This is a great and powerful example of how people come together to demand justice against horrible and violent acts of prejudice. This support is a key foundation to creating change to make society a fairer and more equitable place for all. A lot of this starts with being accountable. Accountability does not mean you will be punished. It means holding yourself responsible for the words you choose, the actions you take, the respect you show, and how you follow through. It means becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable and doing independent research to continue to learn and grow.
We're now going to look at some cultural considerations. Being an ally can be hard in some circumstances, and the culture you're in can dictate and affect this. Some examples can be diversity and equity. These may not translate the same in different cultures and languages. Policies need to be adjusted or written differently depending on geography. Different countries have different cultures and laws in place. For example, it's still illegal and dangerous to be openly gay in some countries, and some countries have outdated views as far as freedom and progression for women and other underrepresented groups go. This can mean that allyship and active accomplishment takes different forms in different regions. There is no one way to be accountable and be an accountable ally or accomplice.
In a professional context, allyship starts internally for each company. What allyship means in the US, compared to Europe, compared to India, can vary greatly. Ideally, representatives from each country and community should help shape these diversity and inclusion policies. This same structure can help you understand how you can support different groups from different cultural backgrounds.
Be mindful of unconscious bias and use common sense. Don't stress over the small stuff, and remember, we're all humans.
We often lose sight of how fortunate we are to live in the age of technology. There are endless free educational resources available at our fingertips. And again, if you're unsure if a website or article is reliable or true, you can always do some further research. As we mentioned before, don't be afraid to ask questions. Other things you can do to get involved is to join your company's affinity groups if they have them, look into relevant podcasts, events, social groups, etc. Learn from those around you. At no other time in history have people had access to so much information as we do today. I'm about to share some resources with you, so get your camera or phone ready to save them as a reference. We'll give you a few seconds to do so.
There is no limit to the resources you can draw on, but we focused on some good ones here. Harvard Business Review regularly publishes credible articles to help understand diversity and inclusion in a corporate context. For intersectional thinking, we recommend this book by Robert Bly, which explores the different intersectionalities all of us have and how we can better understand these. Finally, we recommend a really good podcast series called Leading with Empathy and Allyship, which explores all these topics we spoke about today and more.
To end, if you are to take anything away from today's talk, remember these points on how you can be an active accomplice, an active ally, and hopefully upgrade to an active accomplice to underrepresented groups that need support.
Listen, with all groups we spoke to, despite the breadth of experience and the lives lived, there is one area of consistency. The most important thing we can do as allies and active accomplices is listen to those that have experienced marginalization and faced discrimination. Understand your privilege. Those of us with privilege are often unaware of the perspectives we silence. Reflecting on our own advantages means being able to be critical of the things we observe every day and using them to make space for others. Uplift others. Uplift people experiencing marginalization by engaging in their learnings, highlighting their work, featuring them in your platforms, hiring them in positions of authority, consulting with them, and paying them appropriately and fairly for their time. Learning when to support is an essential act of solidarity.
Apologize when you mess up and quickly move on. For example, if you accidentally misgender someone, just say, "Oops, I'm sorry, I'll get it right next time." Repeat. Working in solidarity is a never-ending commitment and ever evolving. Keep it going. We're all in this together, and together we can pave the way for a better tomorrow for everyone. Thank you for attending this talk. We hope you found some actionable insights you can use in your life. We would also like to thank all of the people and groups who helped to contribute to this powerful talk.
Thank you.